Hey everyone, welcome back to the Tenant Side presented by Tactix Real Estate Advisors. This is your host, Dan Ritterman. Very excited today to be joined by Jim Ries, Director of Business Development at Offit Kurman out of their Baltimore office. Jim, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
So how's everything going on your end? What was the transition out of the office like for you?
Well, Dan, actually, it wasn't a transition because I really wasn't hanging around the office too much. It's funny. It's actually one of those inside jokes because people in the office kept saying to me, "How come you're never in the office?" And finally, I just broke down and started explaining to people, "Look, if I'm in the office, I'm really not doing my job because my job is to be out of the office as Director of Business Development, meeting with a lot of people. This is pre-COVID, obviously, having coffee meetings, lunch meetings, dinner meetings, going to events. That's what I did all day long. So there was no reason for me to be in the office. And the fact is, just about a year and a half ago, the regional director in Baltimore called me and said, "Hey, Jim, we got to give up your office. We have an attorney who needs it, and you're never here." And I said, "Great, I'll come in. I'll get my one photo that's in there, and it'll be the cleanest office that you ever transition to an attorney." And so here we are. So I pretty much work virtually anyway.
Well, but even though you're not in the office, a lot of the people that you're doing business development with were in their office or were at least following routines, right? And that I'm sure was part of what you were doing for the business development. So how did your routines have to change when the people that you were working with sort of left their office and maybe weren't around for those coffee meetings?
Well, much like everybody else in a BD role, everything went from in-person to virtual. And I like to say, and I think this is really a key point, that when this happened in mid-March, you had two choices. You either embrace the change or you complain about it 24/7 to your friends and families and professional relationships. And so obviously I took the high road and decided to embrace this new virtual world and figure out how I could make it work for me and my role at Offit Kurman. And so I've become a virtual junkie. I'm just at it 24/7. I figured out the right events to attend. I've got some of my own events that I started that are virtual that are getting some really good marks. People seem to enjoy it, and so I'm all in. I'm all in. I doubled down on my marketing at the same time, and I figured other people like me, other BD people are probably going to say, this is awful. I'm just going to hang out and sit back and see what happens. And I'm like, nope, I am full steam ahead. Here I go, double down on my marketing. And that's what I've been doing. So much like you and others that you talk to, I'm sure everyone seems to be working longer hours and working harder. And when you take away the commuting time and turn that into work, all of a sudden you got a couple extra hours a day that you're working and you're productive. And so I'm loving it. It's been great for me.
It's really interesting. I think that goes one or two, one way or the other for people. They either really like the separation that they used to have where they woke up, went into the office, and then that's when they do their work. And some people are just, I want to always be working. I'm always working anyway. I might as well just get out of bed and sort of start my day. That makes sense to me. I love that you're creating content. I'm trying to create some content during this. I know you have a series of Java with Jim that you started. Tell me about that a little bit, because I love that you're doing sort of a similar thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, so Java with Jim is something that we came up with actually a couple years ago. It got a nice caricature of me with no hair, right? And so it's a good replication of me. And Java with Jim are the interviews that I do with attorneys at the firm and also with clients. And it's a 2 to 3 minute recording. I ask some interesting questions about them. If it's an attorney, I ask about their practice and what's unique about their practice. If it's a business owner, I ask about their business and a good story about how they got to where they are. And these are 2 to 3 minute snippets that people really enjoy. And people will watch that 2 to 3 minute snippet on LinkedIn, a quick video. So gotten some really good marks. People are watching them. People like them, and I'll continue to do them.
No, I think they're great. I watched a few of the episodes. It makes a lot of sense. Something that I've noticed in the business development world right now is that people sort of want to talk about the issues that they're seeing in their business right now because they're unique and they're issues they've never really faced before. So they want to find out how other people are approaching these same issues. And they're maybe even more open to talking than they might otherwise be. So, like you were saying, those business development people who have sort of said, I'm going to sit this one out for a few months might be missing out on some opportunities. Have you found that to be the case at all?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit tough to figure out whether you have greater access or less access to the business owners and decision makers, because it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. I think at the beginning, business owners and employers were you had access to them. They were trying to learn as much as they could about what they can do and who can help them. But as they got into survival mode, and then the PPP loans and all that, I'm not so sure that they are easy to get a hold of. I have my own ways of getting in touch and getting connected to business owners. I don't rely on luck. I'm much more deliberate and intentional. So I've had plenty of connections with business owners, during this time period. I think you just have to be deliberate and intentional and have some kind of strategy. So again, just to summarize, I'm not sure if that you have greater access or less access to them. People say, well, they're answering their phones because they're not at work, they're working at home. I don't know. I think it's been a bit of a roller coaster for the business owners, and many of them are in survival mode. So, do they want to talk? Do they not want to talk? I don't take a chance, and I don't count on luck. I'm deliberate and intentional in getting those introductions to those business owners, and then I have my conversations with them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. You go one of two ways where things are sort of going very well for you right now, or maybe you're just sort of treading water, and we see people sort of on both sides of that. Do you have any tips for people who are going into these virtual networking events, maybe for the first time, where they used to be someone who was attending in-person events or doing a lot of these coffee meetings? Now they find themselves sitting on these Zoom conversations with 10 or 12 people. Do you have any tips for people when they're in that situation?
A great question, Dan. Right up my alley. Oh, yes, I've got plenty of tips. So I would treat it just like it's an in-person event. Great. It would be great if you could get the actual attendance list before you attend. You might have to push a little bit. And if you can't get that, at least figure out based on the invitation and based on, who might be attending, get your elevator pitch ready for that audience, and maybe have a story that would be of interest to that audience. So if it's a trade association, a membership association, or just general networking, figure out who's going to be there, and alter your elevator pitch and some stories that will be relevant to them. And then go in, and as I say all the time, don't be a lurker. A lurker is somebody who hangs out in the corner, who doesn't really engage. You got to engage. So I would suggest you get there early. If it's an event, a virtual event that starts at 10 a.m., I try to get on at 9:45 and meet the organizer, meet the host, meet the presenter, and have conversation with them. And then listen and listen to the presentation. Connect with people through the chat room. I always recommend that you put your contact information in the chat room. And just be interested. Be interested in what people are saying, and be ready, because when someone asks you, so Dan, tell me what you do, have something interesting to tell them. And that's when you've been given the opportunity to discuss what you do. When someone finally says, so Dan, what do you do? I've told you what I do. What do you do? Just have something ready. Have something ready that's going to be interesting and maybe different than what everybody else is saying.
My answer is usually most companies spend way too much money on their real estate, and I can help you stop doing that. And that usually invites a follow-up question. And that's my entire strategy is let's get into a conversation, right? I don't want them to say, what do you do? Have me say something and they say, okay, great. And then they walk away. That doesn't help anyone, right?
And mine is I rescue business owners who are working with the wrong attorney.
There you go. Right.
Same thing. So like, huh? What does that mean?
Right. It invites additional questions. That,
Exactly. And that's the key. The key is then they give you permission because they're going to ask you questions. What does that mean? Tell me more.
right.
So you're not blabbing all over them. It's giving you permission to unload on them.
And if you're one of 12 people in a Zoom call, by being, and you don't want to be too interesting, you don't want to be out there, but you do want to be memorable, and you want people to realize, hey, that's the guy who said that kind of, it wasn't funny. Funny is the wrong word, but maybe catchy, something that sticks in people's mind a little bit.
So memorable is really good. There's several words. Memorable, authentic is really good. Don't try to be somebody else. Just be yourself. I would say empathetic is really good because still, even if we're 4.5 months into this, whatever, people you got to show empathy. People are going through some really tough times and dealing with lots of different challenges at home, at work, what have you. So those are some of the things some of the characteristics I would really work on.
What are some tips that you've picked up that you think you can apply ongoing going forward, or what are some things that you weren't doing before that you're doing now that you'll keep doing when this is sort of over, whatever that looks like?
There's no question that for me, and I think for a lot of other people, many of these virtual events and activities are going to go forward even after the pandemic because it's really efficient. It works. People can connect. You eliminate the commuting time, the traffic, the parking and all that. And people are realizing what a value that is to be able to get on a Zoom meeting, as you said, with 12 people. That can be very meaningful and very valuable. So a good use of 30 to 60 minutes of your time. So the really good events, I think for sure will continue. They're not going to completely take the place of in-person events. I went to my first in-person event last week, and there were about 20 people outside, spaced, safely, wearing masks, and it was nice to see people again. But honestly, when I left the house, I thought, I got a 20-minute drive, then I got to park, and it was hot. It was really super hot there. 20 minutes home. Haven't seen it, haven't looked at my emails while I was at the event, so I don't know what's going on. It's going to be an interesting balance, but to answer your question, I think definitely some of these valuable virtual events and activities are going to go forward after the pandemic.
I agree with that, and I agree with especially what you said about cutting down on the commute. An hour-long meeting or an hour-long event takes an hour. It doesn't take 2 hours, including the drive time and the finding the parking, especially in a city here like Philadelphia. So it is. I hope that's a long-lasting effect of this. I agree.
Well, based on where you are and the background that I see, you could go by rooftop. You could just connect by rooftop and swing like Spider-Man, go from one rooftop to the next, and you'd be there in a matter of a few minutes and wouldn't have to worry about traffic or parking.
Well, the problem is to get from my house to the office is where the real commute is, I guess, or out to the suburbs. But
there you go.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I really appreciate you joining me. This was some great information, some actionable tips that people can take, and I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me, and have a great day.
You safe out there.